Well, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that, not having no audio to the video, but I think you get the hint. What we're talking about is all about ARC Connex. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the part of your world. My name is Jason Mejias. I'm one of the product marketing managers here at ARC. With me, I have Shelly Younger, who's the head of offers and settlement here, and we are excited and looking forward to spending the next hour with you, maybe a little bit shorter, hopefully not a little bit longer, but to really spend some time talking about all things ARC Connex and ARC Connex Legacy. Before we do, I want to ask a question to the group, and we're going to open up a poll, which is, and it'll give us some time for those who are still joining in. In one word, what comes to mind when you hear the term airline retailing? Again, it's a big term. It's a buzzword for many within the industry. But what I've done is I've launched a poll. You should be able to see that on your screen. And if you can go in and just type in your response, maybe it's one word, maybe it's pricing, maybe when you hear it's modern, whatever that may be, we're going to ask you to go in. I see orders as the term, and we're going to create a word cloud, and we're going to look at that to see what some of those responses are. Look at what we're seeing: modern pricing, tickets, NDC. Keep on filling those in. Again, you should see that we're going to keep this up for about maybe a minute or so. We see self-serve, great terms, airline sales, products for sales. I see wide range. Look at this. Good answers.
Omni-channel. Yeah.
Yeah, we're seeing some good responses. Keep them coming. Keep them coming. We got about 35 responses so far. Don't be shy. I got about 125 of you on the line. Go in and fill out those responses. The biggest word we see is NDC. So you can see the size of the terms based on what we're seeing as the responses. Personalization, payments. These are great responses.
I see some interesting. There's some challenging responses too, Jason. You've got complicated, you've got confusion, right? And I think that's fair. That's fair to, hopefully we're going to address maybe some of those things today.
For sure. We'll give it about another 20 seconds or so, and then we'll close out the poll.
Distribution savings.
Yep.
Okay.
Direct to customer, savings for airlines, a la carte.
NDC still at the top though, Jason.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, it is. Okay, I'll give you about another 10 seconds. All right, well, let's a couple more coming in. I don't want to make sure I don't miss any of them. We see modern pricing, a lot of different responses. I'm going to close this poll, and you have your final image of what this word cloud looks like. Again, NDC being at the center, where we look at the larger words, everything from range of products, but like you said, Shelly, even terms like complicated, wide range. So, we see the positives, we see the opportunities. I'm not going to say the negatives, but the opportunities for us in the industry. So what I want to do this afternoon is I want to spend some time looking at modern airline retailing. I think it's a good level set before we go into the portfolio of ARC Connex and spend some time to make sure everyone's on the same page, what we call the evolution of airline retailing. For many of us who've been in this industry for a long time, you'll remember from about the 60s to the my kids would say the 1900s. Make you feel old, huh? So the 1990s, we had what we will call it the ticketing era. Within that ticketing era, you're looking at everything from paper tickets. It was all a manual process. It was the ability we were focusing on accounting. It was all about selling a seat. Really, that's all we had. That was, again, we're looking at about 30 years that moved us within about the 1990s. Things started to evolve. We started to see more GDS. We'll call this the distribution era. This is where everything was EDIFACT standards. It was very rigid. It was all about rules. Again, but when you look at each one of these eras, ARC played a real important role. When you look at distribution, ARC, as distribution was scaling, ARC ensured, everything from the money, the trust, the value, all of that moved with technology. That's where we started introducing tools and solutions like IAR. For many of us, you have not lived until you went through a Tuesday where your hands are full of ink with carbon copy and you're running to a post office to submit your weekly sales report before automation and before those electronic tickets. Those were the good days. But that led us to now into the 2010s to today, where we looked at things like NDC. Now, this is where we started looking at rich content, ancillaries, all about dynamic pricing. There was comparison to that of the online shopping cart. And what we're able to do when you look at not just selling a seat anymore, but it was about creating the right offer, and being able to bundle things like maybe the bag, the seat, meals, Wi-Fi, all of these different ancillaries, and be able to position that to the traveler. And ARC made it possible to innovate without rebuilding the industry's financial backbone, which is ARC, when we look at our reporting and settlement. And finally, that takes us to today and beyond. And that's when we're looking at our orders and we'll call it the orders experiences or era. This is where now we're introducing order-based interactions, end-to-end journey management, really where you're looking at a traveler, no matter where they've made their booking, we're able to service that booking, whether it's at the airline directly, through an agency, or the traveler itself making those calls and engaging with the airline. We want to be able to support that, and we'll talk more about what we've done within orders, but ARC is helping the industry involved from what was a ticket-based processing, when you look at tickets and EMDs, to an order-based commerce. A lot of things, a lot of evolution, a lot of fragmentation, and a lot of solutions that have been introduced to the industry. But one of those is ARC being at the center of it. Now, even at ARC, when we looked at our solutions, when we looked at reporting, we looked at orders, what's the future going to look like? Settlement, NDC, our legacy distribution, when we talk about GDS and Edifact, how do we connect them all? How are we able to, in a compelling manner, actually communicate that you have a clear understanding of the value of what ARC brings and how we're able to provide those solutions? Well, over at GBTA in the beginning of August, we introduced ARC Connex. ARC Connex is not a product, it is a portfolio of solutions. This allows us to be able to bring together all our solutions within our reporting and settlement portfolio under one brand. And what I want to do is spend a little time talking about a few pieces of the brand. Our first one is ARC Connex NDC. Now, you might have heard of an NDC solution ARC had for many years that was called Direct Connect. Well, this is a direct brand replacement. So it's no longer called Direct Connect. It is now ARC Connex NDC. Now, what does that do? Well, it enables modern airline retailing with NDC connectivity. So this allows us to be able to connect those NDC transactions into our reporting and settlement services. When we're looking at NDC, now we're not just talking NDC with tickets, but we're also looking at the future of what NDC with orders will look like as the industry evolves. Financial operations across modern distribution channels. This is one of those where we're in the middle of this transformation. In fact, today we're looking at roughly around, I'm not going to give that away. I almost gave away an answer to a question, and I'm going to be careful with that. But it allows us to expand NDC adoption while really maintaining what we've done at the core within our reporting and settlement. So truly, NDC being a big part of what we're doing currently. Now, looking at the future, we're looking at ARC Connex orders. And what that does, it allows us to support our transition from ticket-based to orders-based reporting and settlement. So moving away from tickets and EMDs to what our future holds within orders. Now, orders, I like to define orders as, I like to say it's like the folder. It's like that middle folder that has all your content for your airline transaction. Whether it's your ancillaries or all your pieces, your seat, your ticket, instead of it being these individual transactions, these individual documents, you now have this one single order ID that can travel across, whether that's the agency, the airline, your technology providers. Now, what's that going to do? That's going to really simplify a lot of the workflows within the agency and within our partners. It's going to reduce complexity. I know those are some big words and those some big promises. This is another one of those where we're keeping a very keen eye on where the industry is headed, because a lot of this is new. It's new for a lot of us, just like NDC, but we're happy to actually be the first reporting and settlement solution for order management. Just like we did in the 30, 40 years ago, we were the first orders reporting and settlement solution for GDS EDIFACT transactions for tickets. Well, we're the first to also do that with orders, and we're excited about that future. Now, I kind of went backwards. I did NDC and orders, but there's Old Faithful, as I like to call it, which is our legacy solutions. We call that ARC Connex Legacy. This is our trusted GDS foundation. And for that, I'm going to pass this to Shelly, and she's going to talk in depth into that solution.
Thank you, Jason. You said Old Faithful, and it made me feel old there for a second. But
I said Old Faithful, not Old Yellow. So.
ARC's legacy reporting and settlement capabilities have, you kind of look at it, and it's provided a trusted foundation for both airlines and agencies' data reporting and financial settlement for over 40 years. In fact, we had our anniversary recently. And while we've watched the technologies evolve, the key principles of ARC have remained. And those are, we automate critical processes like transaction reporting, reconciliation, and we also provide a secure, reliable financial settlement for GDS workflows. And that is something the industry has relied on, today and for many years, and will continue to rely on. As airline retailing does continue to evolve, we think some of these principles remain. We see them as providing stability needed to support today's ticket-based business while we look to the future and enable this long transition that we're going to see to offers, NDC, and orders and other modern retailing capabilities. Jason, next slide. Okay, so now Jason had a poll for you earlier. Now I have one for you. Approximately what percentage of ARC's transactions are processed through what we're calling ARC Connex Legacy, which is otherwise sometimes known as GDS EDIFACT, but what do you think is the percentage of those transactions today, approximately? We'll give it about a minute here for folks to provide the poll. And Jason, I'm not going to answer because I'm going to skew it. So
no, not a problem. And I almost let loose that
you
answer.
You almost let it slip. Myself. You did.
I got too excited.
Okay.
We got some responses. We'll give it a few more seconds. Give it about another 10 seconds of what I got. Yeah. Half responses. Don't be shy.
Okay.
People.
Yeah. No shy wallflowers here. Okay. Okay. We're seeing some additional responses.
Let's see our results. What do we have here? And we're going to close the poll with, let's see what we have. We have 44% of folks thinks it's 75% approximately. 31% say over 90, And we're tied at 13% for those at 25 and 50%. So yeah,
Okay.
over a quarter of the folk believe it's approximately 75%.
Yeah. So so what is that answer? That answer, for those of you that said approximately 75% are correct. And as a matter of fact, it is actually a little closer to, it hovers between 78 and 79%, depending on the month. So for those of you that picked 75, you were correct. And we have seen that. Yeah, congratulations. We have seen that grow. If you look a couple of years ago, actually, we were hovering kind of a little bit more in the 18, 19% range. So you do see that kind of gradually climbing up, and we expect to continue to see that. All right. We took a step back and looking at our role in airline retailing. And Jason just talked about the evolution of airline retailing. And we have played, and we feel like we will continue to play a significant role in this story going forward. In terms of kind of what we think are the most important roles, it's giving airlines more flexibility to sell and distribute their products in the ways that work best for them and their partners. So whether that's through the foundational GDS transactions that we're talking about with ARC Connex Legacy, or NDC with tickets, as we're seeing today, approximately 21, 22%, or NDC with orders is what we've designed and we feel like is coming in the future. We also look at making reporting and settlement a lot simpler and more efficient while helping to manage the costs around reporting and settlement. We look at providing trusted, actionable data that helps airlines, agencies, and their partners make better decisions. You look at strengthening commercial strategies and improving the customer experience. We also see our role is going beyond products and services. We've played a significant part in bringing stakeholders together over the past few years. In building networks, we've been guiding conversations to move the industry forward. And if you look at some of those examples, they're the Debit Memo Working Group, for those of you that are on the call that participated in that. We have the ARC Payments Forum. We have the NDC Advancement Working Group and the newly formed ARC Orders Forum. And those are just some of the groups that we have that, bring people together. So that's what we see as continuing to be our role in the future. Next slide, Jason. When we look at our core, and you'll hear this theme kind of again here, we look at helping the U.S. travel ecosystem work more efficiently by connecting airlines and agencies right through our trusted foundation and our financial infrastructure, financial and actually operational infrastructure. And for us, that starts with agency accreditation, which actually helps establish that trusted relationship across the marketplace and extends into transaction reporting and settlement, where, again, we provide the processes and controls that help move billions of dollars in transactions, both reliably and accurately. For us, though, settlement really is just a part of the story. We also support the financial flow behind those transactions, and we do that through credit and debit billing and refunds and cash management, while also providing financial and revenue reporting needed to understand performance, reconcile your transactions, and manage your business. If you look at all of these things together, we feel like these capabilities help reduce complexity and give you all the confidence that the financial side of travel is being handled consistently and securely. We also help customer manage through what happens, after a transaction is issued and requires additional attention. We have tools that support debit and credit memo transmission, communication, resolution, and benchmarking that help agencies and airlines identify and communicate exception processing and understand the trends behind them. And at that same time, our risk management and fraud prevention capabilities really help focus protecting the ecosystem by identifying potential exposure and supporting stronger financial controls. And we really think because we sit at kind of an intersection between airlines, agencies, and travel transactions, that the information that flows in these processes creates significant value beyond settlement. We have our data solutions and business intelligence that really turns information into insights that we feel like airlines and agencies can use to better understand performance. You look at things like the market and making more informed decisions. So if you look at these and take all of these together, these core functions, we feel like they really create a foundation of trust, financial integrity, connectivity, and insight. And that's the foundation that we will continue to build on as airline retailing evolves. Jason, next slide. I wanted to take a look at kind of a snapshot of our ARC Connex Legacy platform. So we connect 252 airlines and over almost just shy of 10,000 agencies. And if you look at 2025, we processed more than 282 million passenger segments, totaling more than $88 billion. And that's a lot of money, moving around through credit billing and cash transmission. And so it is critical for us that you guys continue to trust our legacy platform.
Shelley, I'll just add a little bit, the title of this side is the industry connector. And even on this call, we have people from airlines, from agencies, travel technology providers, back office, aggregators. It's not just, coming from somebody who was a customer of ARC. I just had one view of what ARC did, which was primarily reporting and settlement. As even through my years at ARC, seeing how vast the role that ARC plays in the industry it is so broad and more than I ever imagined. It's always good to just bring that to the forefront, knowing that what we do is not just for the airlines, it's not just for the agencies, it's about connecting, which was a lot of the reasoning around that brand of ARC Connex. Really, we sit in the middle. We're the ones that are trying to bridge that gap and create that bridge across all our different partners.
And I think if you kind of go back, Jason, to one of the things that I talked about on the previous slide, is things like the debit memo working group and the indice advancement working group. That's not just airlines and agencies sitting in the room. Yeah. That's airlines, agencies, GDSs, back office systems, other technology partners, even folks like ATPCO and IATA join us for those kinds of sessions. So it's important to us that we bring all the parties together, because you can't just bring, two parts of the ecosystem together. It isn't, I kind of look at it as an organism, right? Where everybody has to play together. And I think that's an important part of the rebranding on ARC Connex.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. All right, next slide. Thank you. So what is the strategy around ARC Connex Legacy? And, we looked at how many transactions are still coming through ARC Legacy, right? You're still talking about 78% of our transactions come through ARC Connex Legacy. And we feel like, right, we're going to continue to play an important role in supporting reporting and settlement for GDS EDIFACT transactions. And we look at three main priorities that drive us, and that is maintaining that reliability that you've counted on all along, improving the efficiency, and increasing automation. So our goal is not necessarily simply to maintain existing technology, but we're looking to strengthen the services that work today while making thoughtful improvements that reduce the complexity for our customers. And we looked back, over the past several years, we've taken quite a few steps to make the legacy environment a lot more responsive to changing customer needs. We've also done behind the scenes a lot of application modernization and technology modernizations to speed up our processes and to further strengthen that structure. And if we look at some of those changes that we've made, it's included things like expediting access to settled data by up to 2 days. We enhanced the ancillary fee and EMD information that agencies receive on the back office file and in IAR. And we modernized the agency back office file capabilities. We had an old format and we brought it into the, this century and provided a JSON capability. And we looked at each of these initiatives, and they were designed to improve, the usefulness, the timeliness of the information that customers receive without too much disruption to the established processes. And today that work continues. We've expanded settlement to support multiple forms of payment, or some of you know it as split forms of payment. And we've modernized the technology that supports ARC Connex Legacy behind the scenes. We really feel like these investments help us improve operational efficiency and increase automation and maintain the stability of our reporting and settlement platform, while giving that platform greater flexibility for new requirements. So if we kind of look ahead, we're going to focus on, again, maintaining that reliability that you've come to expect while we optimize the platform and enhance automation. And one of those things that we just kicked off is settlement data APIs. And we're going to get into more of that here in just a minute. We've also been doing a lot of application modernizations, and that's done a lot to provide a lot of flexibility and automation for our customer workflows. So if you kind of had to leave with one thing, our overall strategy for ARC Connex Legacy is one of really what we like to look at as practical evolution. We're going to continue to support the capabilities that you know and love today while we introduce modern technology and greater operation where it makes the most value.
Shelly, I know as we're about to go deep dive into some of these initiatives, I was on the call. This is where I probably start having some questions. If you have questions, I'm going to encourage you. There's the chat area of the Teams webinar. You can go and type your questions. We'll either be answering them during our webinar online, or we'll be doing it through the chat box as well. So I encourage you, if you have questions as we start talking about some of these initiatives, ask your questions. Also, keep in mind, not everything is you're seeing here, meaning there are some other initiatives happening. This is not all of them. There is the evolution of MyARC to what we're MyARC 360. That's going to be coming out in the next year for our agency community. We've recently launched that as a segment part for our airlines. So what you're seeing here is not everything, but these are the key focused initiatives that we're highlighting this afternoon.
You know, one other thing too, we talk about our application modernizations. We've been working really hard, Jason, on agencies will see a new IAR user interface, right? That's coming up here in the next month or so. And that's just an example, one of many examples where we've done modernizations to our user interfaces.
Great. We have a question that's come in and it's going to segue us perfectly.
Oh,
It says,
good.
with MFOP, how is ARC working with the airlines regarding adoption?
So I will, you know what, I'm gonna answer that first, and then you're gonna see a little bit more of that as we move along, and then I'm gonna give you a second answer, Michelle. So we have, you know, we've done a lot. I wish I could name for you all of the outreach that we've done through email, through webinars, through actually picking up the phone and having conversations, through other kind of joint working groups or forums that we have, like the ARC Reporting and Settlement Advisory Forum. And our key account managers also do a lot of outreach to really push adoption, push airline adoption. And we will continue to do so, because you've hit on a point that's important, which is we need airlines to adopt for this to be meaningful to everyone in the ecosystem. So we will not stop that push. So I just wanted you to know that, Michelle. We implemented multiple forms of payment in November of 2025, and it obviously supports the use of more than one form of payment for purchases. But even more important, to be honest, is it improves the refund form of payment accuracy and processing. So it reduces debit memos and chargebacks, because historically you could only refund to one form of payment, even though multiple forms of payment had been used previously. And a lot of people ask me how that works, right? So you have a ticket, you have one exchange or two exchanges where you're using a couple of forms of payment, and then you want a refund. And so historically, you've been able to refund to one form of payment, or we did have processes that allowed you to refund to more than one form of payment, but they were quite manual and cumbersome, to be quite honest. And in some cases, agencies were receiving debit memos or chargebacks because the customer didn't understand that the refund went to one form of payment. So that was a critical piece for us, because based on credit card charge in credit card industry, it is required that you refund the appropriate amount to whatever form of payment was charged. So we wanted to eliminate the manual work that was required and reduce the need to contact ARC's customer care center. So we heard the feedback. It honestly has been the #1 enhancement that we've heard about for many years. So we put that in place in November, and it does allow agencies and airlines to issue a transaction using up to 3 unique forms of payment when there's a sale, or if there's an exchange with an additional collection, at least through ARC. GDSs actually have their own functionality, so you'd need to reach out to your GDS to confirm their specific functionality, but that is what is allowed through ARC. We also set it up so that you could actually refund or exchange with a refund, which is a bit more rare, up to 10 forms of payment. That's pretty excessive. I would say the most that we normally see, believe it or not, are 3 to 4. Every once in a while, we actually see 5. which again is pretty rare, but you can go up to 10. Again, each GDS has their own implementations. So where do things stand today? Today, Sabre and Travelport Plus have implemented the functionality to support multiple forms of payment in the US point of sale. Amadeus is at the very end of testing. They were implementing a couple of things at the same time. And so we're looking at September 2026 for Amadeus to go live. So far, we have SAS, Scandinavian, Qatar, and El Al Israel have activated MFOP. We do have another 4 or 5 airlines that are in the middle of testing. And we are working with our board airlines and our top airlines to get MFOP in place at minimum, at least for GDS EDIFACT transactions. So Michelle, it kind of goes back to your question, is we will not take our foot off the gas in pressing airlines to process it, to be able to activate MFOP. So for airlines on the phone, I'm going to do a shout out and say, please, if you have not done so, reach out to us. It's really important, especially when it comes to refunds, because it requires a lot of manual work for the agency if you have not activated MFOP. So that's my plug, Jason, for MFOP.
I'll have a plug for the agency community. Begin to talk to your airlines. Push again. You're the best advocate for this solution. Going to them and saying we need this. We want to be able to use it. It's going to help us. So again, as we're doing the legwork and the communication, be the same on your end, communicating with the airlines and technology providers.
Thank you, Jason.
There's a question that came in. Well, it says, when it comes to the cost of processing a transaction, which payment option is preferred in ARC?
We do not have a preference on your payment option. The cost for the transaction does not change whether or not it is a credit card, debit card, or cash form of payment. Now, that's the cost through ARC, right? There are costs to the industry, for instance, on a credit card form of payment, and that is called interchange. And the airlines pay that interchange, and it can be as high as 4%. It depends on the card, the issuer, a whole lot of factors. So that is outside of ARC. So inside of ARC, we charge the same whether or not it's a credit, debit, or cash. I hope that answers your question.
And Shelley, I did add in the chat, I added the link to our redesigned participating airline information page. So we've redesigned from top to bottom our list of participating airlines where you're able to see how they participate, what are their business rules, not just for Legacy, but for NDC as well. And you'll see multiple forms of payment as an option, even at the filter level. So if you want to see those up-to-date airlines that are participating, you can see that within that page using that filter capability.
Thank you. Jason, I'm seeing quite a few questions around MFOP in IAR and it sounds like some discrepancies in settlement. So what I'm going to do is, for those people that have those questions and are seeing some challenges in IAR or settlement, I'm going to ask that you reach out directly to me and provide some details to me, or I'll give you a call back. My email's out there. I'm happy to provide it. Jason, do you mind putting that in the chat?
Just did.
Okay. Thank you. I know I'm not going to have time to cover all of those here, but I want to make sure we get an answer to your question. So thank you.
Perfect.
All right, let's go to the next one. Again, I want to reiterate something Jason said. These are not the only things we're working on, but these are kind of the really the biggest, if you will, kind of biggest nuggets that we've done here recently or are doing. MFOP is completed and we're focused on onboarding. The next step are what we're calling settlement APIs. And this is really focused on agency operational efficiencies by reducing the manual work in IAR, in our agency sales reporting tool. What we want to be able to do is automate the ability for agencies to modify transactions. So think of things like commission, waiver code, tour code, ticket designator, and correct errors through an API. So we would like to reduce the amount of manual effort in IAR and also provide real-time access to both pre-settled and post-settled transaction data. Saw a heart there, for a quicker resolution. So that's, and I'm seeing hand clapping. I like it. So what does this look like? Well, we have kicked off the project. We have had 30 calls with agencies and back office vendors, and we will continue to keep those folks in, reach out and set up meetings with them as we move through this project. It is going to be in a phased approach so that we reduce the risk and also can get faster feedback from the agency community. So our first phase, we're looking to have done by the end of 2026, with the remaining phases in 2027. And so the thought is that by the end of this year, we would have an API that would allow you to do those modifications that I just talked about: commission, tour code, ticket designator, waiver code, and also receive the IAR BOSS file through an API. Phases 2, 3, and 4 would happen throughout 2027. And in phase 2, we're targeting error corrections. So that could be anything from we received a transaction with a form of payment the airline does not support, all the way through there are partial exchanges where we don't receive the data from the previous transaction, from the old transaction, so it goes into error. There might be PFC codes that are not correct. It runs the gamut. There are literally dozens of errors, and so you would be able to correct as many of those errors as possible in phase 2. Phase 3 would be the ability to input a new transaction. So think of refunds, voids, even exchanges as needed directly into IAR. And then the final phase is the ability to support just transaction retrieval, pre-settlement, post-settlement, based on your agency needs. So think of things like, this is a really popular one that folks have reached out on, is, Shelley, I want to be able to see all MCOs that are still have in an open status in IAR. So they haven't been refunded, they haven't been exchanged, and I want to see those for the last month or the last 6 months or whatever the case may be, right? We're going to have a lot of criteria for the agency to be able to search on, and we're going to be working with the larger agency community to understand what criteria is the most important, right? So it's a very big endeavor. We are so excited about it, and we're very excited at the agency's excitement around this, because, right, the whole goal is to speed up reconciliation, to be able to reduce that manual labor in IAR. Now, for the agencies out there that may not necessarily adopt right away or may not adopt at all, maybe you're a smaller agency or a mid-sized agency, we are still going to leave the ability to manually input in IAR as needed. And so didn't want everyone to think we were taking that away. You will still be able to go into IAR and manually update transactions as needed.
There's also an opportunity. Right, yeah, there's an opportunity as well, Shelley, for our smaller to mid-sized agencies where maybe you don't have a technology team, but potentially you're working or you have engagement with a technology provider that does type of implementations working with APIs. This would be a good opportunity as well to begin engaging with technology providers that can maybe build out a solution for you to be able to leverage on these APIs. Now, I will ask this before I bring up some of the questions that came in. If you have interest to the APIs, or you're going to be wanting some more information, and your agency can support the technology of implementing APIs. If you want to just in the chat box, just type interested, and I'm going to share that with our key account managers so they have that list and references so they can connect with you and provide you some more information as we begin to roll that out.
Jason, one other thing that I want to make sure that everyone understands is we have about 10 back office vendors that we are working with right now directly that will be involved and invited to be involved in testing, providing feedback. So we are going to be having joint meetings in the future with the vendor and their respective agency customers, because we understand the importance and need of the vendors actually doing the work to support these APIs. So that's another piece that I just want to make sure that everyone kind of walks away with is we are very focused on including the vendors, the back office vendors.
Speaking of back office vendors, I'm going to mention this for something prior, but for multiple forms of payment, if your back office provider is not supporting it, or you're wanting to see them, I encourage you engage with your back office provider so that they're doing the work as well to display that information in your back office accounting system as well.
Jason, I'm happy to answer a couple of questions. I know we have about 10 minutes left, but I want to make sure if there's something pressing, I want to get to that question.
For the sake of time, I'm going to keep questions focused in on Connex and Connex Legacy. There are a few questions outside of the topics that we will answer outside, and if you've asked a couple questions around transactions, and there's a couple around Amadeus, we'll answer those questions offline for you. But for the sake of time, there are no other questions.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jason. And we'll certainly answer any of the questions that you have put in the chat after we finish the webinar. So, we obviously, airline retailing is the word of the day. And as we see that evolution, the industry as we've seen, is not moving from the model of today to a completely new one overnight, right? We have been talking about NDC for, I think it's been almost 15 years now. I was at the very first IATA meeting around NDC. So we know that the path is moving. It's just moving very slow. Today, the majority of airline transactions are still built around tickets and EMDs and PNRs, and that has been a proven model that supported the industry for decades. We will continue to support that through our ARC Connex Legacy reporting and settlement processes, using kind of both traditional kind of flat file based file exchanges and APIs, as you can tell we're building. But as the industry adopts more modern retailing capabilities, we do expect to operate in this hybrid world. And you're going to hear that term a lot, right? The hybrid environment for the foreseeable future. And that looks like GDS tickets, that looks like NDC with tickets, and that also looks like NDC with orders. And all three of those will coexist at the same time. Everyone is moving at different speeds. And so what this means for us is that we really have to be flexible. And our approach must support customers, where they are today, and give everyone a clear path to adopt orders-based capabilities when it makes sense for your business. So our orders-based reporting and settlement capabilities are really being designed with that coexistence in mind, that hybrid world in mind. So rather than requiring customers to move to an immediate cutover, we're going to be supporting traditional ticket-based transactions and new orders-based transactions at the same time. Our goal, right, is to provide that consistent financial and operational experience across all of the models, trying to reduce the disruption to the ecosystem while it evolves. And, you know, over time, as airlines embrace more modern retailing, the industry is going to be expected to move to a model in which a single order record manages the customer's purchases throughout the journey, just like we do today in many other retailing capabilities. So we're going to be reducing the reliance on separate tickets and other documents. And I look at, and ARC looks at, our role is to help that transition be practical. So preserving the reliability of what we do today in ARC Connex Legacy, while enabling the flexibility and the simplicity of tomorrow's orders-based world. And Jason, I think you mentioned it earlier, and I'm probably stealing a little bit of your thunder, but this webinar was focused on that branding change and ARC Connex Legacy, but there's going to be 2 more webinars on ARC Connex NDC and ARC Connex Orders.
Yep.
I'm going to turn it over to you, Jason.
Okay, we have some questions that have come in, and there's, for the sake of time, again, we're going to answer some offline. But one of those was a really valid question. What is an API? An API stands for Application Programming Interface. The best way to explain it, it's a piece of software that sits in between 2 applications. So it allows communication between 2 applications. So again, when we talk about an agency that has a back office system and ARC has IAR, an API is what allows communication between the 2. There's a lot of different terminology and acronyms. I know I'm seeing that up here, but I would say definitely stay close to our webinars. What we're going to be doing over the next few months is we're going to be introducing, or we're actually going to be going into depth in our webinar series. In next month will be around ARC Connex NDC. That'll be on September 16th. And then we're going to close it up in October on the 21st with our 3rd part, which is the future of settlement with ARC Connex Orders. And that's going to tie very closely in our timing with our 2nd release for orders, which will be orders with credit card. Back in January, we did our initial release, which was orders with supporting with cash, and this will be with credit card. Now, I know there's been a lot of information and we couldn't get to all the questions. I'm going to encourage you. We have released with our Connex brand, we've released probably about 5 or 6 different new web pages. Everything from a new modern airline retailing to an ARC Connex page, and then one for each of the solutions for Legacy, NDC, and Orders. I'm going to encourage you, spend some time on the web page, look at the information that's available to you. There are FAQs. I know that you probably have more questions than answers. That's okay. That is to be expected. But I'm really going to encourage you to join us over the next few months as we deep dive not only into ARC Connex, but also into the solutions like NDC and Orders. Well, Shelley, again, I know there's some questions still coming in. For the sake of time, we are going to take those questions offline, but I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us this afternoon. There's been a lot of great information. Shelley, thank you for all your wisdom and knowledge in the industry as a subject matter expert. On behalf of everyone at ARC, thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Take care.
And answering your questions. So
yes,
thank you.
For sure. Thank you, everyone.